Oscar's grief. In the previous episode, his lover, John Adams, was murdered by a carriage, leaving Oscar Van Ryn, Blake Ritson, in shock. His stoic exterior, it was a tragedy, of course, but the world keeps turning, belies his inner turmoil, as he struggles to grieve in private because of the societal mores of the time. Fallout between Marian and Larry. After learning about Larry Russell's, Harry Richardson, covert visit to a brothel, Marian, Louisa Jacobson, sends a letter terminating their engagement, leaving Larry shocked and wondering if his mother, Bertha, Carrie Coon, had any impact on her choice. The Russell family becomes tense and doubtful as a result. Gladys power play. At Sidmouth Castle in England, Gladys Russell, played by Taysa Farmiga, starts to exert herself against her domineering sister-in-law, Lady Sarah. One noteworthy instance is when Gladys gently humbles Sarah by asking, "Sarah, are you okay? You must be sick. I reasoned when you stood there without waiting for me. So glad if I was wrong," she said, displaying her increasing self-assurance. Peggy's struggles. William's family's hostility, especially their anti-suffrage ideas, which conflict with her progressive ideals, causes Peggy Scott, Denise Benton, to experience increasing stress in her romance with him. Peggy is forced to consider her role in society and her relationship as a result of this tension. Russell family crisis. After their reputation is harmed by a leaked paper, George, Morgan Spector, and Bertha Russell must deal with a collapsing railroad empire. Their marriage is under stress, and they need to move fast to stop the gossip and preserve their social status. Return of Ma Beaton. Following her part in the Oscar hoax in Season 2, the enigmatic Ma Beaton, now going by the moniker Dolly Trent, makes a comeback, igniting curiosity. Her presence raises the possibility of confrontation and adds another level of deceit. Emotional and social stakes. The penultimate chapter sets up a dramatic finish, and the episode is said to provide tragedy, anguish, and a race toward social success or disaster. The season's intense melodrama is still driven by the ensemble cast, which includes Cynthia Nixon, Morgan Spector, and Carrie Coon. The Gilded Age has never felt overly focused on character deaths in any of its 3 seasons. Actually, Luke, Ada Forte's husband, was the sole character to pass away. Although the characters were prepared for his death and were able to say goodbye, the accident in episode 6 of the show completely altered the plot. This is utterly unusual for the narrative, as no character in the Gilded Age has ever really met a brutal end before. In other words, the Gilded Age Season 3 continues to illustrate that it is willing to be more chaotic than ever, but this is perhaps required to keep from being monotonous or uninteresting. Additionally, the show might decide to back off, as it frequently does at the last minute, and leave episode 7 open with the revival of John Adams. He still does business with Oscar, after all, but regrettably, John Adams will only be the latest victim of the "bury your gaze" cliché if the Gilded Age decides to murder him. In Season 3 Episode 5 of the Gilded Age, George Russell sacked his longtime secretary Clay, demonstrating his increased recklessness. Mr. Clay went beyond George Russell's tolerance for being told what he can and cannot do. Clay is now seeking retribution, and he is fully aware of how to obtain it. After their joint business meeting, Clay tells Risley Sage that he has worked for George for so long that he knows exactly where the bodies are buried. This is made evident right away since, the next day, a newspaper article using Clay's material is already drastically reducing George's business chances. In Season 3, George Russell's financial endeavors have proved dangerous. After he persuaded the Merricks to sell him the controlling stake in the Illinois Central line, things appeared to be improving somewhat in the first half of Episode 6. However, the conclusion left George in a worse situation than before, with no obvious way out. In Season 3 of the Gilded Age, Gladys Vere has not had an easy time. She wept when she married Hector, Duke of Buckingham, in Episode 4, and his obnoxious sister, Lady Sarah, was already bullying her in the following episode. Gladys finally gets the story she deserves in the Gilded Age, Episode 6. George Russell's financial ventures have proven risky in Season 3. In the first half of Episode 6, he convinced the Merricks to sell him the controlling stake in the Illinois Central line, and things seemed to be getting a little better. But George was left with no clear route out and in a worse position than before the end. Gladys Vere has not had an easy time in Season 3 of the Gilded Age. In Episode 4, she wept when she married Hector, Duke of Buckingham, and in the next episode, she was already being harassed by his annoying sister, Lady Sarah. In Episode 6 of the Gilded Age, Gladys finally receives the narrative she is entitled to. It was entertaining to watch them enrage Lady Sarah more and more, but their bonding in the episode does not make up for what Bertha has done to Gladys. Watching Gladys enjoy her new title and authority to the fullest was the episode's high point. Gladys, not Sarah, is the Duchess and head of the household. I had hoped that Season 3 would steer clear of Marian Brooks' marital issues, which have surfaced in every season of The Gilded Age so far. Throughout the season, she has maintained a close friendship with Larry Russell. Before he went for Arizona, the young pair even got engaged. However, everything changes in episode 5 when she finally finds out about Larry's trip to the Haymarket. When Marian learns from Oscar that Larry was only there for one of his friend's bachelor parties, the place's reputation and the presence of prostitutes are enough to make her lose her mind. In actuality, Larry did nothing improper while in the Haymarket, though perhaps he ought to have told Marian the truth about his destination. To give them both closure for that Season 2 narrative, he even located Ma Beaton and informed Oscar about it. Marian and Larry are unable to discuss the matter face to face because Larry has just arrived in Arizona and needs time to explain himself. Perhaps as a result of having been burnt twice, Marian panics and calls off the engagement when she might have simply sent him a note or waited for him to come back to truly have that conversation. Marian and Larry are unable to discuss the matter face to face because Larry has just arrived in Arizona and needs time to explain himself. Perhaps as a result of having been burnt twice, Marian panics and calls off the engagement when she might have simply sent him a note or waited for him to come back to truly have that conversation. Jack has spent his entire life working, so he is unsure about what to do with that sum of money and is reluctant to leave the Van Rhijns. He points out that they are the only family he has ever known, which makes sense. Even though Ada Forte has a very sympathetic stance, she nevertheless demands that he go. Oddly, she tells her family that he must have decided it was time to move on after he departs the following morning without mentioning that she dismissed him. Ada might be feeling a little bad right now, especially because Jack left money for the house's residents, confirming his status as one of the most morally upright personalities.